Gene Valentino's Grassroots podcast. He tells the truth. He tries to get information out there to make sure people make good, informed decisions.
The one we're featuring this week is Luis Sanchez from the Cigar Shop. He owns a company called La Tradicion Cubana. The Cigar Shop, Miami, Florida, since 1995. This Luis is really one heck of a guy. He's determined to manufacture cigars based on an unprecedented excellence in quality using old-fashioned Cuban methods. You can get this to become part of your branding experiment. I'm using this with my guests on the Grassroots Truthcasts. This could be your brand on your product, your service, anywhere in the world. Look for Luis Sanchez at thecubanshop.com.
Yeah, Bianca, well, here in the Windy City over the Labor Day weekend, President Trump claims Chicago is the murder capital of the world right now. He also says that the Democrats right now in Illinois are pushing back with these lower crime rates that they tout all the time. But he says he might actually look at red states that want the National Guard help. Watch.
So we're making a determination now. Do we go to Chicago or do we go to a place like New Orleans, where we have a great governor, Jeff Landry, who wants us to come in and straighten out a very nice section of this country that's become quite tough.
So the Democrat-run Chicago is over the weekend saw 60 people shot, at least 9 people killed, dozens of shootings. Yet Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker doubling down, claiming that Chicago's violence is under control. You watch this.
The president's absurd characterizations do not match what is happening on the ground here. He has no idea what he's talking about. There is no emergency that warrants deployment of troops.
Call it manufactured crisis. So President Trump, he argues that D.C. is now a crime-free zone since deploying the National Guard, pointing to the recent arrests, the falling weekly crime rates. But as President Trump waits for Chicago to ask him for federal help, the city's mayor, Brandon Johnson, is now blaming red states for the gun violence.
The vast majority of guns do not come from Chicago. They are not made in Cook County. They are not bought in the state of Illinois. These guns come from red states. They are coming from Indiana. They are coming from Mississippi. They are coming from Louisiana.
Meantime, you've got Illinois Senator, a Democrat, Dick Durbin. He agreed that federal troops would actually help out in Chicago, yet he believes there needs to be some government collaboration here.
Do you think it would make a difference to have some help from the National Guard in Chicago?
Well, it certainly could, but the starting point is this. Local officials, like a governor and a mayor, can work with federal officials to be more effective in reducing crime. That's a given. I accept that. But in the situation in Chicago, this is not a negotiation any way whatsoever.
So one of those states that President Trump is eyeing for the National Guard is Maryland. So last month, Governor Wes Moore, he invited Trump to walk the streets of Baltimore, an invitation Trump turned down, saying, yeah, it's not too safe here. Governor Moore now facing some criticism, Bianca, after being spotted over the weekend, beaching it up, get this, George Clooney's yacht on Lake Como. So hypocrisy continues.
Yeah, there's pretty little crime out there on beautiful Lake Como. Must be nice. Thank you, John. Good to see you. Bringing in now the host of the Grassroots Truthcast podcast, Gene Valentino, and editor-in-chief of the Illinois Review, Newsmax columnist Mark Vargas. Gentlemen, a pleasure to have you both. Well, that's just it. Pritzker's got tons of cash. You've got Wes Moore rubbing elbows with George Clooney. Mark, you're in Chicago. I want to start with you. Dick Durbin, a Democrat, says, yeah, it would help. So President Trump says we're going in. What's the feeling like there where you are in the state, and how do you think the locals will respond?
Well, the locals have been responding, and they've been demanding that the National Guard come into Chicago because the streets aren't safe. It's a war zone. I mean, think about this, Bianca. There were more Labor Day weekend shootings in Chicago than in D.C., New York City, Baltimore. and Philadelphia combined. And yet Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson say that this is a manufactured crisis. 67,000 violent criminals out on the street because of no cash bail who missed their court hearing. That's not a manufactured crisis. 90% of violent crime victims who've never been identified or charged, roaming the streets freely in Chicago. That's not a manufactured crisis. And finally, 1,600 police officers short. And as a result, 225,000 high priority 911 calls like shots fired, assault in progress that went unanswered because of a police shortage. That's not a manufactured crisis. The residents are speaking out and the calls are growing louder and louder each day. Bring in the National Guard.
And so here we have it. They want it. They might get it. It looks like, according to President Trump. So it'll backfire then on Pritzker and Mayor Johnson. Just like eventually this crime, all of these crime issues will. I think the Democrats have sort of misjudged the appetite for law, Gene.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Mark any more. I mean, it is not only backfiring, I think it's a strategic move on President Trump's part, which is unprecedented. Here you have the President of the United States with full authority vested in him to come in and help those who cannot help themselves. And he's laying back low and waiting for the citizens. Some 70 plus million people voted for him. Some of those citizens are now stepping up and saying, hey, who did I vote for locally? Who's the mayor I elected? Who is the councilman and councilwoman we elected? I think this is proof, Bianca, that I think the president's going to come in, and I think Chicago's not only the next stop, but not the last stop either,
right,
to remedy this dysfunction nationwide. And he's doing so with the mandate of the people, not the Democrat deep state operatives that don't care what their constituents think. That's what I think is masterful about Donald Trump's approach here.
Certainly, and people who live in Chicago know that there's a budget shortfall, and by the end of this fiscal year, they will have spent $250 billion on illegals. So they know the priorities that have not been keeping people safe on their streets. Guys, the story that is percolating today, speaking of mayors, New York City Mayor Eric Adams is saying that reports that surfaced today of a possible job with the Trump administration are, quote, hypothetical. We obviously know there's a big race happening there. New York Times reported that advisors to Trump discussed giving Adams a position in the administration to clear the field for Andrew Cuomo to challenge Zohran Mamdani in the New York City mayoral race. Adams' campaign says there was not a discussion, but Mark, could be an interesting way to clear the field, and there is a lot of concern about Mamdani if he was to win in New York City.
No, you're absolutely right. And obviously, none of us are privy to those specific conversations, but I'm almost certain that there are conversations about we need to clear the field and find the strongest candidate. I believe Mayor Adams is polling dead last. He's got, last numbers, a 70% disapproval rating, which is very, very high. So the strategy is clear the field and let the strongest candidate run against Mamdani. Otherwise, New York's going to fall apart. It's going to look like another Chicago. I mean, I think today Mamdani proposed a $30 minimum wage. He wants to defund the police. There's got to be a strategy to figure out who can go head to head with them and beat them, because New York is going to fall apart and look a lot like Chicago.
Yeah, well, we'll see where it goes. Obviously, it might be early on their talks, and they don't want to let the cat out of the bag. We are talking about an update on Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, but New York City's mayor, who obviously has such an amazing legacy, injured in that car accident in New Hampshire. I just want to play a little bit because he did a live stream, and he was even being lighthearted because he did fracture his spine. He's wearing this brace. Here's Rudy and his sidekick there and spokesperson Ted Goodman.
We're out, we're doing our show, and God was very, very good to us. He looked after us, and he made sure that everything worked out okay. And we did the right thing so we can feel good about ourselves, and we can be an example for other people of what they should do, which is what Jesus wants you to do.
It's amazing to hear that, the faith there. Giuliani obviously was amazing with crime. 9/11, the leadership there. President Trump will give him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. You look at a man like that, Gene, and now you look at Mandami. I mean, how this country, especially New York City, has gone in a very different trajectory. And many say for the demise, potentially, of the people who live there. High taxes, high crime. Giuliani really was such a different, powerful figure here and is fortunately going to be okay. We are so happy to report that.
So glad to hear he's going to be okay. But I must say, Bianca, sometimes things need to get worse before they get better. I hope New York wakes up and sees that they're about to make a big mistake. I mentioned to you some time ago that I believed the next mayor of New York would be Curtis Sliwal. I now, as the field clears, I do believe it more so if President Trump does what he's done for others and step up and give a resounding endorsement to Curtis Sliwal. The timing is approaching, and frankly, the Democrat Jews, some 4 to 5 million of them registered to vote, could be instrumental in realizing how important this vote will be. But Rudy Giuliani has worked with all sides of the fence, I think, through thick and thin. I think a lot of people have a lot to learn from Rudy.
Yeah.
He's a true patriot.
He is, and even bringing down the mob. I mean, what he did
That's
there
right.
in New York. Also, final thoughts. I have about 20 seconds, Mark, but a mayor is so crucial to sort of a culture of a city. We thought it couldn't get worse after Lightfoot, but it seems like Brandon Johnson has done no good service for the folks there. Final thoughts.
Yeah, he has a 6% approval rating. It's been reported that he's been hospitalized over a dozen times for panic attacks. He's ill-suited for the mayorship. He blames Richard Nixon and Donald Trump for Chicago's crime crisis. Residents are finally waking up, and we will see the National Guard in Chicago.
Mark Vargas, Gene Valentino, I hope you guys come back soon. Thank you so much. Good conversation today on those big, fast-moving stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, still ahead, we'll talk a little bit more about Zoran Mondani.
The one we're featuring this week is Luis Sanchez from the Cigar Shop. He owns a company called La Tradicion Cubana. The Cigar Shop, Miami, Florida, since 1995. This Luis is really one heck of a guy. He's determined to manufacture cigars based on an unprecedented excellence in quality using old-fashioned Cuban methods. You can get this to become part of your branding experiment. I'm using this with my guests on the Grassroots Truthcasts. This could be your brand on your product, your service, anywhere in the world. Look for Luis Sanchez at thecubanshop.com.